What is going on, fellow alchemists? Welcome to Astrology. Today we're talking about Pluto in the 4th house. But before we get into that, I just want to thank all my new subscribers for subscribing to my channel. Thank you very much. Thank you for all the love you've shown. And let's just get stuck into this one. It is Pluto in the 4th house. So Pluto in the 4th house, what does this mean if you have this placement in your natal birth chart? It can be quite similar to Mars in the 4th house because Pluto is a higher octave of Mars. Mars is the undulating energy that allows for an operation to continue or to find its mechanistic pattern of continuation in regards to how it functions in a specific sign. So that's the energy, the manifestation and the process and operation of that energy in a sign. So when you have a case where you have Pluto in the 4th house, you find a higher octave of this energy. It's more powerful and it's more pronounced, but it's also quite subtle, and that makes it a paradox. And that's the thing with Pluto. Pluto almost brings in a paradox. It's got this very powerful concept, and that's what Pluto does in the natal chart. Pluto is a very, very hard planet to fix because it's quite ethereal and quite elusive in its nature. Because it has this kind of subconscious operation, or this plane where it operates from the subconscious, it's quite hard to exactly pinpoint the energy that comes from it. But the paradox comes in because it is, when it does, that type of energy that Pluto emits is exceptionally powerful. It's nuclear in nature. It's nuclear force. And that has a very, very prominent basis in esoteric astrology and the way we understand esoteric astrology, because Pluto has a role in how we describe the process of universal mind and the energy that universal mind uses to utilize the objective set out by the universal mind itself. So Pluto is a kind of the kind of force that you would call as nuclear force, in the sense that if you look at the subatomic world, Pluto acts as the forces that keep things together. It's called nuclear force, and we refer to this as nuclear force because if we didn't have nuclear force outside of gravity, the majority of the particles, the molecular structures, wouldn't be able to form together. So Pluto has a very prominent role in that sense, and that's why it has a very similar look to Mercury in that sense, because it kind of administers the nature of what we call in Theosophy for Hut, or that kind of universal cosmic energy that powers things on. So when you have Pluto in the 4th house having been ruled over by Cancer, dealing with the angular positions of the houses in the chart. So this is an angular house, it's a cardinal house, it's ruled over by the cardinal angular water sign of Cancer. And it has to do with the Imum Coeli, or our foundational roots, the roots that we grew up in, the kind of traditions we grew up in, the kind of nature that we grew up in, the social construct that kind of surrounded us as we grew up in it. And this is why it's kind of very similar, because Pluto is a high octave of Mars, it can be quite similar to having Mars in the 4th house. There can be a very domineering effect in this part of the chart. The 4th house has to do with your family, your immediate circle. So you could find a case where there was someone, or maybe yourself, was quite domineering in this part of the family. You know, there could also be a lot of roles or issues that come into this that have to do with death and transformation. And it doesn't necessarily have to mean the death of actual life, but it could actually mean the death of ideas, concepts, perhaps monetary status in regards to how your family progressed through the progression of your life. And maybe even before that, you know, maybe there was a transformation. Your family was from a lower caste, is what it's called in the Indian society, but perhaps you managed to break past that and exceed into a new higher level of caste system, you know, where you're more you're in a better socioeconomic environment. So the whole thing here is that Pluto can bring in those types of undertones of death and transformation. It can be quite domineering. There could be a very dominant essence in this part of the in the family that you were built up, or in the family that you were raised in. There could also be loss of loved ones in the family you were raised in, and not just in the generic way, but there could be accidents that could have been seen here. There could have been situations that otherwise, you know, the majority of families don't necessarily go into or don't necessarily experience, other than the traditional, you know, progression until you pop off. So Pluto can make that happen, but it is quite a prominent position in regards to when chaos reigns. Pluto is able to hold on to the reins and create some sort of order from it. And so people who have Pluto in the fourth house can experience or can become the very beacon of stability. That's why it's very similar to Mars in the fourth house. If they move away from that domineering energy, from that domineering aspect that can come with this placement, they can find themselves in a situation where they become the very rock that solidifies the nature of the fourth house down into the root concept of structure and foundation for not just themselves, but for the family around them. So for the alchemist, that was Pluto in the fourth house. I hope you really enjoyed that one. Please don't forget to subscribe, drop a like down below. More importantly, drop down into the comment section down below. Tell us what it's like having Pluto in the fourth house for you, the things you've dealt with, the things you're dealing with, and the things you think you might deal with. That being said, paramount to all of that, take good care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next one when I do Pluto in the fifth house. Goodbye.